welcome to the 24th episode of Back Alley Chat, the fastest growing addiction recovery podcast in the world. Today, we have an awesome interview with my friend, Jason LaChance. Jason is from California, and he is the host of the Knocking Doors Down podcast, as well as the Parents and Addicts in Need. He works for that nonprofit with Flint Anderson, who was recently on the show as well. So he is really, really amazing. He's an individual who's in recovery from alcohol addiction, sex and love addiction, as well as has been outspoken about his issues with childhood SA. Jason's a father and a partner, and he's worked in radio and broadcasting for over 20 years. So I am stoked to have this conversation with him today. Of course, today's episode is sponsored by Quick Intel. Quick Intel is on a mission to make DeFi safer. If you all don't know what DeFi is and what the promise of DeFi is, DeFi promise is based on the ability to create a new financial system that is open, transparent, accessible to everyone, regardless of location or financial status. DeFi has the potential to create new economic opportunities, lower costs, improve efficiency, and increase financial inclusion. So instead of big banks being able to do secret stuff behind their doors and open fake accounts in your names like Wells Fargo, DeFi would end that because we'd be able to see everything that's going on. So with that being said, look into that and look into Quick Intel because they have created a hub of AI tools to increase your safety and security in the crypto space and to make it so that you don't lose any of your hard-earned money to some scammers. Visit their hub of AI tools today at quickintel.io, or you can download their app on iOS or Android. And I hope that you guys will give them a little follow, check out some information on crypto, and get educated on the subject because DeFi is the future, my friends. I love you all so much, so much. Let's jump into this episode. Also, happy Wednesday. Hump something consensually. I love you guys so much. So, Jason, hi. Welcome to Back Alley Chat. Sorry.
What's up, homie?
I took the, I'm like always taking a day off here and there because it's just like I have no time. I know we were speaking on Thursday and I was like, I'm overwhelmed. So, I was like, I'm going to take today off, do my podcast, do some homework, catch up on doggy training, and, I'm getting my hair done. So,
a lady's got to get their hair done.
Obviously I can't go to work if my hair's not done. I can't do homeless outreach without good hair.
my mom had to have hip surgery and she's frustrated. She's like, I'm trying to get my hairdresser to come to the rehabilitation facility. I'm like, okay. She's like, well, a lady has to have her hair done. I'm like, all right, Mom, do your thing.
It makes such a difference. I know when I get my hair done today, I'm going to feel like 1,000 times better.
Hey, trim every 2 weeks. I have to. Drives me nuts. Oh, yeah. I have to every 2 weeks.
That's the difference between a good haircut and a bad haircut. 2 weeks. That's what my dad always says.
2 weeks.
Well, that's when he told me when I had lice when I was a kid, they like cut my hair off. And I was like, I look like a boy. It was like very traumatizing. So.
The worst. Having flashbacks of my kids when they got it. Oh, geez.
So tell me a little bit about your upbringing, Jason. You're originally from California?
Sure. Yeah, I was born in Salinas, California, like one of the lettuce capitals of the United States.
The lettuce capitals?
Oh yeah, that's what it's known for. Ag areas. I seem to always end up in freaking ag areas for some reason. But born there, two parents. As you know, we talked about dad addiction, lineage of addiction on both sides of my family, and. How far do you want to go, Allie?
Hey, well, I want to be able to, share some of like where you've been and where you're at now to give people a little bit of hope. Cause I think a lot of people might be able to relate to some of the things you went through in your childhood that we don't often get to talk about in this podcast, from the pornography to, everything, like that, your alcoholism, you got a divorce, right? So, and now look at you knocking down doors, knocking doors down.
Knocking doors. Everybody says it the other way. I think it's, what would it be? Sins of the father. So Sex addiction runs on my dad's side. All the men, we've traced it as far back as my great grandfather.
Wow.
My father went through a lot of sexual abuse, rape, molestation, men and women. So as a child, pornography, and I mean hardcore pornography, granted, this is when it was on VHS and magazines. You couldn't just do a quick Google search.
How old are you, Jason?
45.
What? Oh my God. You look great.
Thank
I thought
you
were the same age as me.
that.
Okay. So, all right. VHS porn. Got it.
Yeah, it was all there. So it's kind of prevalent in the home. And then I went through molestation. It was 5, 6. I don't recollect exactly which one. And so really, I say after getting the alcohol out of the way, I realized that pornography was the first escape. It was the first drug, and the cute girls at school oogling over them. And, I was never the creeper guy or anything that said out of line stuff. I was still raised to be a gentleman with manners, but I definitely had this crappy, terrible feeling that would just always sat inside of me since I was a kid.
And what age were you exposed to the pornography?
About the same time, 6 years old.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, and when did you begin drinking?
Ironically, I was a late bloomer with that because my dad was the one being the petulant child when I was in high school. I wanted to be there for my mom. I mean, I was the one that did the household's, quote unquote man chores and, fixing a leaking toilet and a shingle falls off the roof or whatever it is. So I was like the dude that got people home from the party,
Yeah.
Kelly and Bob are fighting. Okay, I'll drive Kelly home. Somebody make sure that Bob stays here. And I really wasn't. Yeah, it just was a lot thrust upon me in that way, or I stepped up, however you want to look at it. I didn't want to be a shithead. I don't know how else to put it. And then once my dad really got clean, I was I graduated college at 22. So I was about that age, about 21, when I really moved out of the house. Finally, for the last time, I think I moved in and out about 3 or 4 times. And it was like, whoa, I have no responsibilities to anybody but myself. Okay. And, being kind of a shy guy, a lot of these insecurities within that were created from the childhood trauma and upbringing is like, oh, God, that girl seems real nice. I'd like to talk to her. Well, then, finally being out and it's legal now, so I can do it,
Right.
It's like, I don't want to break the law. Then it's like, okay, a shot or two. And it's like, oh, wow, I can talk to anybody. And she rejected me. I don't care. I'll go talk to that blonde. Oh, that one, there's a redhead over,
Right.
And so all of a sudden it started to become like a solution. It was like, oh, I got to host an event. I was working in radio at the time through college, and they'd be like, oh, you're going out to host this concert. Wait a minute. I'm introducing Papa Roach. There's going to be 1,500 people. Yeah. So it's like, okay, let's do a couple shots before we get on stage. There you go. All of a sudden I'm pumped and jacked and ready to go.
Totally. And how long did that go on for?
I really started, I wouldn't say it became a problem really until I ended up where I live now. At about 26, I moved here. Mm-hmm. And small town radio was still a big deal. It was. So small town, and me and my partner, we were, 2 younger guys, decent looking guys, and very different personalities. And we had a huge listenership. According to ratings, 1 in every 4 men in our area, didn't matter what language you spoke, listened to us. So we would go out to bars or dinner or whatever it was. We never paid for a meal, didn't have to buy drinks, and the girls started coming up to you. So, yeah, that's kind of when I moved to this area where it's sad. There's not much going on here for fun for adults. And so it was, drinking and sex. I was like, okay, all right, these 2 things that take away still all those insecurities and everything else inside. So it was kind of off to the races at that point.
And what created a need for you to do something different?
I went through relationship with my kid's mom was very traumatic. There's a lot of mental, emotional, physical, and I would say sexual abuse because there was a lot of infidelity, which eventually I personally got to that point of partaking in that as well. And it just got completely out of control. Then once my marriage was over, ego shattered. The ex left for a big famous musician all these. All those stories, which I got along with him great. I'd actually met him a couple times before. So I was like, okay, thanks. You're doing me a favor. I sat with it for maybe another 2 years before I was really willing to deal with it. And then I went through another relationship that ended, kind of had some similar circumstances to the marriage. And I just went, wow, it's not them, it's me.
Wow.
It's me. And my kids are seeing me. I remember one instance, my son still remembers one morning trying to come wake me up. Hey, Dad, we got to go to school. And I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. I'm not going to take you today. And so that really sits in my mind a lot that, it sucks that they remember that, especially my son. And it was like, it's time to get help. It's time to get help. And so, I did AA. I had about a good year and a half, then went back out for about another year and a half, and then got almost 2 years and then fell off. And now I'm coming up on 3 years. So it's all together about 7 years of sober work.
Yeah, totally. And I know that like one of the last time that you relapsed was during COVID, right?
Oh, yes.
And I thought that was such an important conversation to have because, I spoke about it the other day. I was talking about all these new addiction treatment methods they have, right? They have like this electric brain thing where they put like a chip in your brain and, whenever you want to get high, you like click a button and it goes, whatever. And then they have like a vaccine for cocaine and they have all these things that they're coming out with. But at the end of the day, even if a person utilizes these new tools, if they don't have that connection, right, and that purpose, they're still going to be unhappy, even if they're not using. So I was wondering, like, what was that experience? Because you said you don't even remember driving to the liquor store. And that's right? Yeah. And that's that strange mental blank spot that they talk about all the time. So I was wondering if you could tell us that story.
Sure. It's really how when I talk to, like, if I do a speaker meeting, I start with my saying, no outside solutions to inside problems. And really, it was just terrible boundaries. It was trying to maintain a friendship with an ex, and the gaslighting, the manipulation, it was still there. And I played my part. So I'm not blaming that person. I played the stupid game, and it was a real guilt trip that I was moving on. Like, hey, I'm just letting you know, I met someone progressing real nice, slow where I need to be. And just, they pulled out every tool they could to just hurt me. And I drove to the liquor store less than a mile from my house. And I was sober at the time, and I don't even remember doing it. Wow. And all of a sudden I'm at home, 3 beers in, it's like 1:30 in the morning. And I called 2 people, one that's my sponsor now, and a gentleman named Tony Hoffman that a lot of people might know in the recovery community, speaks all over the country, primarily high school. And they were there for me. And it was like, wow, I might have been clean, but I wasn't working my recovery. I was still the same miserable person, dry drunk, It's a common term. And I was just,
Were you going to meetings or anything like that at that time, or?
I was doing some online, which they're cool. It's not the best for me.
Not the same, right?
I kind of need the energy of some smile and laughter, or even if it's a dude that's just there bearing his soul, like give him a hug or hold their hand or whatever it is. That's where I thrive. That's where I feel real connection, when you get just so vulnerable and honest and open. And, the old timer that might give you a flashback story or something from where they were, that, after you do your share. And I need that. For me, it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When the first time, or I had like 9 months and I drank. And I always tell this story because I drank and I ended up off of Tamarind, which is the hood, like in a dope man's house who's selling drugs. There's porn on the, this is like in one night. I was like, how did I get here in one night? How did I even get here? How did I even decide to say yes to this drink? Right. And it's because I wasn't utilizing many of the coping mechanisms that I had been giving. I didn't have a sponsor that I was working with. I wasn't actively working steps. I was in a relationship with somebody who wasn't in recovery. They were, actively in a relapse over and over again. And, I'm a baby. I'm 19 years old. And somebody asked me, did I want to drink? I said, no, I got to drive. And they said, well, we'll drive you home. I said, well, okay. Because they had taken away the only reason I had to say no. Right? Because I wasn't working any kind of program to make that important to say no at that time. So the only defense I had was like, oh, I have to drive, or I'm not old enough to drink. And they're like, who gives a fuck? We'll drive you home. Here. I was like, okay. Right? All right. And just like you, the next morning, I never drink. Both my parents are alcoholics, and I hate it. I hate alcohol. So I had rarely drank even in my active addiction. And that morning I woke up and I was like, I feel like I got hit by a truck. And I reached out to my friend Nikki and I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I feel better? She goes, well, I'm not going to tell you how you're going to feel better because we don't want you to do that. But you should go to a meeting. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I went there and I was like all sweaty and crying and sad. And, but that was the real beginning to a journey for me. Because I realized that day I had to do things differently if I wanted any kind of success or to be anywhere different than where I came from,
Absolutely. And I think you bring up such a good point. Like when you asked, how do I feel better? Well, if you're dealing with other fellow alcoholics, we would have told you, just have another drink. And that's the loop, where people try to understand addiction. That's the loop. Well, I feel like crap so I drink. I drink because I feel like crap. And it's just this cycle. And that was me near the end. It really, I was kind of more the binge guy on occasion. And then by the end, it was taken over. I mean, I was eating maybe like 1 to 2 meals a day at most. And, often days it was just coffee when I got to the radio station because I never really missed work. It wasn't affecting my work so much or anything else, but everything else. Oh yeah. Right. And then I get home, the kids would be fed, they would get to bed. And then it was my time, which sometimes ended up lasting until it was time to get them up and off to school, sadly.
Wow. And now today, what do you do to relax at night? Because for me, I have a lot of extra energy. So what do you do at night to like wind down and just get ready for sleep?
You are the ball of energy. I want some of that.
And I'm tired. So it makes no sense because I have all this energy and I'm exhausted. So, but yes.
It's hard. It's still hard. It's a challenge. I've gotten better about praying and meditating. That's definitely a part of morning routine. First thing is prayer and gratitude in the morning. But when it comes to night, sometimes because that's where the demons seem to live in the dark, so to speak. I do struggle with that still at times. Sometimes it's still sitting there and being like, I don't want to watch another episode of this TV show. I want to or stop playing this stupid game on my phone or whatever it is. So it's still a challenge at times. I've gotten better about doing some breath work at night. That seems to really help me, slow some of those things down because I'm like you. I got this brain that's always going. And I mean, even last night, double checking my phone. Okay. I have the Zoom with Allie tomorrow in my phone. Cool. Okay. And it's hard for me to slow down. So breath work's been really huge for me. Some nighttime reading has been huge. I'm more of the Christian faith, so I will pull out some Bible verses that friends send me, and I've got a multitude of books that I just pick up. I mean, the big blue book is at the side of my table, right next to my bed, so I'll pull it up sometimes. I'll read something out of it. Things like that. It really helps me. I'd say the breath work has been the strongest thing for me because it really helps me focus and. I'm always seem to be a tense personality. It's like, what the fuck? Like everything's always tight. So, I'll get some good stretching in there sometimes That's too. Important. And
yeah, totally. I heard a good quote yesterday. I didn't want to forget to throw it out there. because I just thought it was awesome. So I was in yoga yesterday, and the lady said, a river is able to cut through rock only because it shows up every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it is with my morning, my work, my whatever it is. It's kind of a constant thing that you need to show up for, even when it's difficult every day. We still got to try to be a little bit better than the day before. And just even if we fail at doing better than the day before, it's okay. We got to do it again tomorrow.
Because it's so easy to get back into some stupid shame cycle.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I mean, you tell me. I have yet to meet an addict that isn't self-deprecating in some way, shape, or form, and it's hard in like coaching or being a sponsor to someone. Like, would you talk to me that way? No. Then why the fuck do you talk to yourself that way?
Right.
Like, cut it out. Let's stop. There's no point.
Right. And the voice, which some people don't have that voice inside their head, which is kind of crazy. Have you heard that? They don't have like an inner voice. Fucking
I
weird.
don't know.
Okay. If you don't have an inner voice, I need you to comment down below. Maybe you need to be the next person to come on here because I don't understand how that works. Right. But those words that we say to ourselves all day are so important. And I am not good at that.
Really?
No. I have to really refocus, right? And like I'll do things like, God, I fucking hate this job, right? Why am I saying that? And I go, Allie, stop. You love this job. This job is good. You're helping people, right? But I'm just frustrated, and I'm just so used to just spitting stupid shit out,
Yeah.
But I really have to every time I do that, I have to correct myself and say something new that's more appropriate or more healthy.
I'm with you. I thank you. I haven't had anyone else say that works in this area. And it's like, oh, thank goodness I'm not the only one. Because for me, I do 2 different podcasts, and I'm spending so much time like editing. It's like I didn't even get to talk to someone today and like help them maybe work through a problem. No sponsees call me like, forget this. I'm tired of being here in this editing, and then. I post something like a reel that I edited, and 2 days later, somebody DMs me and goes, "Hey, thanks, man. I ended up going and listening to that episode, and it worked out." And I'm like, you shithead. Like, why do you tell it? And I mean that in a joking way. Like, dude, like, show a little gratitude for it. Like, really? Like, how many people got to use their life skills and college education skills to actually also support something they're passionate about, which is addiction recovery and mental health?
Right.
Like, sometimes I got to remind myself, like, just look up and say, thank you for what I get to do every day. Like, don't be an ass.
Totally. And having that grace with yourself to when you are an ass or, talking shit or I talk shit about myself and I beat myself up all the time, but I have to show myself grace. And like I said, then redirect it, really think about why do I have these feelings, And something that I had read that you had said was because I wanted to know, when your molestation happened, did you talk about it right away? How long did it take you to do that? Because you said something about like our parents and probably even their parents, their way of dealing with things was basically to not sweep it under the rug, don't talk about it, and how that is probably the worst way to deal with things because it just creates a bunch of guilt and shame. And I was just wondering how that looked for you and how you were able to do that.
I actually didn't talk about it till I called my best friend, who's been my best friend since I was 3 up until I was 41.
Wow.
So I held it for that long,
Wow.
34 years, whatever the math is. I don't know. I'm not good at it. I mean, I did talk about it in therapy one time when I was still married to my kid's mother. I was going to a gentleman who his primary focus was pornography addiction. And I did bring it up because he brought it up in one of our sessions. But as far as talking to anyone outside the safety of that, my best friend, who still is my best friend. I mean, you got me kind of thinking about how special and wonderful it is to have this person in my life. It's been there through so much, but yeah, it really took me that long to open up. And I was glad it was him. And I was glad it was not only another man, but someone that had known me that long, because, you know, he saw so much of my life. And still one of the biggest champions for me. I do 3 podcasts. I do one for his company, a financial investment firm. Yeah. So, you know, it was, I don't want to say a beautiful thing that I was able to, that I was drunk and he was the person that I called, but I guess it's a double-edged sword in that I was able to, in that moment, be like, call him, spill it out. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything. The pornography struggles, the feeling just like total shit for ever being unfaithful in a relationship, you know, all that, you know, the party fun times that go with it. It's like, I don't think any woman ever wanted me to just come home with her that night, leave the next morning and never call again. You know, I think it was a bunch of skill sets, not knowing how to say, hi, I find you attractive. I'd like to get to know you better. We lead with this really beautiful thing that people just seem to be handing away, their sexuality. So there's a lot of that guilt and shame that was wrapped in it all, you know, because I'm going to tell you, if you're someone struggling with pornography, take a look at how your sexual attitude is. You know, I mean, I've talked with women that they're like, yeah, my husband hasn't touched me or looked at me in 3 years. Young men that are 22, completely impotent, wouldn't know how to approach a woman. Young girls that are being incredibly just promiscuous, you know, thinking and waiting that eventually it's going to land for them. One of these guys is going to love me. No, they're not. You know, so it was beautiful in that. It was very painful.
Yeah.
And I kind of was taking a bit of the easy way out of having some courage juice in me, so to speak. But the next day he called me again and we talked about it when I was sober.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, hey, you fucking called me. We're going to deal with this now. And you're going to deal with it when you're not clearly drooling all over yourself and slurring your words and, you know, everything else. So
what an amazing friend.
Gift.
Yeah. Was it just like, did you feel freer once you just like got it out? Did it change you at all? And like that you weren't holding this weight with you by yourself anymore, or?
It started to get lighter. And I noticed I started to talk about it more, especially in meetings, because there was other men that were opening up. And I was actually dumbfounded at the amount of men that went through very similar circumstances. And, you know, the more folks that I know that are falling to addiction and alcoholism, I mean, and been in mixed meetings where, geez, more than half the women would have raised their hands to it. And it's like, oh my gosh, like this is an epidemic in itself, which is sad and disgusting.
100%. I wanted to know how you felt. So I know in certain states, maybe it's like 10 or less. In certain states, they're making these restrictions for websites like Pornhub and stuff like that. And like, I think, was it Utah or Virginia had like an 80% drop in the amount of people visiting these sites because of the age verification thing that they're trying to implement. I was wondering about your thoughts on that. And do you think it's positive, or does it matter, or?
I do think it is, because, I mean, what are they saying? The average age of exposure now is like 7 years old.
Wow. 7?
8 years old.
Wow. Jesus.
And at the end of the, I mean, really think about it. At the end of the day, I mean, I know that it was like, you know, curious teenagers, you know, and they always go boys. No, you know, girls too.
Everybody,
I mean, come on, everybody. We're sexual beings. You know, it's how it works. It's part of the makeup. Yeah, I think it's just incredibly detrimental, especially when this is depicting for a lot of people their belief that what sexuality is, and it's not. I mean, it's entertainment, you know, in whatever form you want to take it as. And I think it's really, it's dangerous that it presents that there is some kind of external solution, and that it's sex, that it's going to like help with all these feelings, because it doesn't. It'll leave you empty. I had a good pattern of being in a relationship 2 years max, and the next one was lined up. And if you look at scientific research, certain chemicals start to dissipate, the butterflies and all these different things. And I got to that point because I noticed that's when other people were checking out on me. So I think it can curb a lot of that and hopefully get real conversation going behind it. I mean, it's sad. I don't know. I haven't looked recently, but statistics, and I'm willing to bet so many young women, especially, they're hitting 18 and they're making cash on OnlyFans. And that's where they're going. And they're thinking that this is it. This is where I go. This is what it is. This is what my worth. And that's where they're placing their value. I'm sorry. When you spend all day doing that is how and what you think of yourself, that there's nothing other than this. Well, guess what? When you start to get a little bit older, as we all do, we all get a little less physically attractive. Right. I know I can't get the abs back like I could when I was 20. Things are starting to maybe hang a little bit and sag. It's just how it goes. That I see a lot of people really having some tough roads ahead. That's leading to a bad place for them.
Right. Because it's like, what do you do next? And I mean, I get it. These men and women are making millions of dollars on OnlyFans. And I remember during COVID, I brought up to somebody, I was like, dude, this is the time. This is the time to do stuff like this because everyone's so lonely. They're going to be knocking doors down just to have somebody, a companion to talk to or feel loved or cared for in any way or get any kind of attention. And that's really what happened. And sometimes it's like, man, I wish I could, I don't have it in me to do it. I wish I could sometimes because that sounds awesome. I'm not even, some of them just show their feet all day. If I could just show my feet all day, make $1 million and go have a lobster roll at the beach on a Thursday and then rent a jet ski, sounds fucking awesome. But I can't imagine the type of, eventually that has to have some kind of effect on you, your ability to be in a relationship, to feel love, to love back, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and you kind of think about it too. It's like, wow, if you're just giving this away on the internet and I chose to be in a relationship with you, how am I going to, as your partner, value it? It's like, it's not a thing that I'm going to hold up too high because you just give it away. Well, I mean, sell it, whatever it is. I think it distorts a lot of things. It makes it very complex. I know that I went down a deep dive of like, I wonder how well relationships go for adult film stars, porn stars, whatever you want to call them. And if you do the research, not too fucking well.
Yeah.
Ever.
Totally. I mean, for a man, you have to accept the fact that your wife is doing these things all day with different people. And like, what's his name? Malik, started dating the one girl who's I can't remember either of their names. Anyway, but they started dating and, even though she was one of the most famous adult film actresses that we've had in a long time, she didn't want to do that stuff that she did in the films. Like she doesn't enjoy that. That is not enjoyable. That is entertainment, And so he had to learn that when they started dating. They're like, hey, I'm not open to X, Y, and Z. I really like some vanilla, in the bedroom. And that really was what she wanted. And so it's kind of different because you think you're maybe getting but you're really getting the real person and what they really want. And that could be a real two different things.
It's a mind screw. It's like, wait a minute, you're fine with it there, but in our and everybody, you have a healthy relationship and part of your sexuality, it's explorative and hey, to each their own. It's behind your closed doors, at least in my opinion, where I've gotten in life, it should be. Like when people talk about their relationships and in that area in public, like I'm the first to just walk the hell away. Like, I'm not talking to you about that. Like, I talk to my partner about that, and that's it because it's our intimacy, know. And I think, and I don't think there's anything wrong with discussing sexuality per se and healthy aspects, but it's kind of like, that's private. I'm not going to tell you what what we share. My God, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
interesting.
That's how it is.
I had a sex therapist on a few episodes ago, and she had brought up that basically like, these are conversations that you have with your children at very young ages now. Because like you said, they start seeing stuff at 7. So you need to start having, what have you seen? What do you think? To create a healthy environment for their sexuality as they grow older, so they didn't end up all fucked up like the rest of us, right? But what a hard conversation to have too. And for parents to even consider it, I think is very hard for them, because that's their baby, like not a sexual being, right? But I do think that those conversations, I guess, are important.
A must.
Yeah.
A must. I stepped into it pretty early on. I think I was, and I believe that her mother did too, because we divorced. They were 6 and 5, so they're pretty young. But really having that conversation and letting them know. I mean, both of my children, 15 and about to be 14, are very aware. And we have that conversation, and I did have that conversation again. I do check in again and, talk with my children about it, especially my son. And, and he's like, no, Dad, I've not viewed pornography. I take what you say very serious. He even at 15 has such a mature perspective. He's like, no, if I meet someone, I really would like to connect with them. I am attracted to women, because I was like, hey, you can be open. I'm not going to judge, whatever you're attracted to. That's not for me to say. I'm just here to love you. And it was very open. And we talked through these things. And, I told him, I'm sorry if some of this stuff is uncomfortable for you to hear, but I want you to understand, because I don't want you to go down the road. And no, he was very mature about it. And we had a beautiful conversation, and it's important. And I think your kids will respect it. That I could share with people. They will, they'll kind of, they get to a certain point, but they really understand how they got here, and it's as much as we don't want to think, but it's like, okay, no, I get it. I understand. And you can have a mature conversation, and it doesn't have to be salacious and, anything. And I would never talk to my son the juvenile ways that I was spoken to about sexuality at all. I wouldn't do it. Neither are my children.
Mm-hmm. And you go into schools too and talk to them about this kind of stuff, right? What is that like, and what is the response with the kids? They're like, how do you do that?
I get a lot of tears, because I like classrooms over like a big auditorium, because you don't get to really talk. So normally classroom, maybe 20 kids at most. And I'd spend about, 25 minutes of my story, try to keep it as quick as possible, and then field questions. And by the end, a lot of them, the teachers will send anonymous responses or whatever it is. And most of them, the response is, thank you for talking to me like an adult, like no one does. Or, wow, well, what you shared, I hear myself in that, Wow. I was talking a lot about social media, and talking about a situation of a young lady in Fresno, California, very, cute girl. I think she was a beauty queen pageant girl, and overdosed thinking she was buying Xanax, got fent, but a lot of the story and on her social media account, I was showed it like very pretty all the time. And there was a girl in the class that was like, wow, that's my story. My mom is like on me all the time. Well, you need to be the pretty one. That's your, like it's her skill set in life. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And I get it, hey, there's nothing wrong with, and I'll tell them in that there's nothing wrong with being an attractive person, taking care of yourself, liking the way you dress or whatever else it is. But understand the reason you're doing it.
Sure.
But if you don't work on who you are on the inside, again, when you get old, you're going to be a pretty miserable person to be around.
We lose all the good stuff when we get old, I guess, but we gain all the wisdom.
No, we gain all the good stuff when we get old.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's like the people that are around you, you can no longer be like, there's no bullshitting anymore. It's like, oh, you just enjoy this company.
Right.
And maybe that's me now being 45, which still sounds weird. Like now, like if I don't like you, I don't care what you look like, how much money you have,
totally.
What you think you can offer me. I don't care, I like piss off. I'm gonna go sit with the guy that's been clean off of meth for 4 days. I'll go hang with him. I got more in common with him.
He's way more fun, probably. Those are
well,
my people.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, cool. All right. This is somebody that's, I don't know. I think you tell me, I think people in recovery that are really working it they dig for something different. I don't know.
Something,
I don't know how to put them.
Just a greater purpose, maybe, right? And I think it does come back to that service, right? And how we're of service, and how we are we're a little gang, not gang, a bad gang, but a good gang, and like I always tell a story. When I started at my job, one of the first people I met from another organization was a peer. And I was so grateful because I was like, oh, another peer, right? Like, and we're homies, like we're super close, and everyone's like, oh, because they're super, it's just this whole thing. But it's like, well, we get it because we're peers, and peers kind of stick together like that because it's like we're on the life raft together. Like, all right, we made it, guys. Right. We didn't die. We're not in prison anymore. We're out. And it can be hard for me to relate to a normie. In some ways, though, they have all their own shit. When you meet somebody and they might not have a drug or alcohol problem, they might have problems that are 10 times more fucked up. And you won't know because they don't have that outward thing of using drugs or alcohol that kind of set off a red flag initially to go, they just, they seem normal. But we all have things to work on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When you talk about normies, it makes me think back to like, oh wow, I'm really working my sobriety and trying to date. Oh, what a nightmare that was. Oh my God.
Oh, were you trying to date like regular were you trying to date normies, or you were dating in recovery normies? Yeah. I love normies. This conversation because it is, I always tell the story. I was setting my sponsee up on a date, whatever. They were totally hitting it off, having a great time over text message. He wanted to go to a wine bar, whatever. And she was like, that's, she's about to have a decade in recovery. So she was like, yeah, cool. I don't care. But just so you know, like, she's like, Allie, what should I say? I was like, just tell me you don't drink. Like, who cares, right? And she was like, oh, like, I don't drink or whatever. And he ghosted her. And I was like, oh my God. I didn't expect that. Was that your experience also?
I'll tell you a story of the worst example of somebody just not understanding boundaries. So went on this date with this lady, and I explained up front, like, knew I was in recovery. I said, hey, here's how I date. I said, I'm going to be honest, because you may not be the only person I want to date, but I'm making it clear what I'm telling you is what I mean. Because I know people that date multiple people now, they think, oh, they're just sleeping with everyone. I'm like, I will not hold your hand. There will be no first date kiss. I will pick you up at the door. I will drop you off at the door, and it will be conversation about getting to know you. I'm making this clear because if I'm on another date, I want you to understand that's what it would be.
Right.
So anyways, go out. I think she had 2 or 3 drinks or whatever it is, and then didn't take the boundary serious, tried to lean in for a kiss or something. I went, hey, I had a nice time. I'll shoot you a text tomorrow. Later that night, sent me very graphic pictures. This is what you're missing out on tonight. And I was like, I'm going to go ahead and block you. There is no way this is going to
No way. You blocked her?
Yeah, but I explained why. And fully knew everything.
Right.
Hi, I have struggled with alcohol like you wouldn't believe. I have struggled with, and it was, oh, you are clearly going to try to get whatever you think you want, that I'm some solution to all of the shit you're feeling inside. And you're going to go ahead and overstep everything about me that I made clear you will not overstep.
Right.
And so it was, but I had other situations of dating and people just, eventually, here they are drinking. I'm like, wow, is it me having boundaries that all of a sudden I'm driving these people to want to drink more? Because it's like, no, I'm sorry. I'm spending time with my kids. I will not come see you or whatever it is. And it's like, okay. So now I'm in a relationship with someone that just chooses not to. Like,
that's cool.
That gets no enjoyment out of it. Had nothing to do with me. lived her life that way prior, and hey, it works. It helps our communication and everything. So it can be a nightmare. I feel for people
getting out there is tough.
Yeah,
I know. I've always been, well, I don't know if it's lucky or not. I don't know. I'm sure I have lots of relationships issues that I need to deal. I'm like, that's what we were talking about that on Thursday. I'm like, God, you just keep finding more problems that you have as you go on, right? You're like, wow, is that a problem? Huh? Maybe I should work on that. So, but I haven't had.
I think it's just communicating with your boyfriend, right?
Yeah, and I think I've always dated people in recovery, so I haven't. I don't even really suggest. I mean, I guess anything could work, but for me, it always hasn't been well, sometimes it has been and sometimes it has. And I guess it just depends on the person, right? Everyone's different. But my current relationship, he's not in recovery, but he doesn't drink. He's drinking maybe twice in like 3 years. So I'll take that. I don't like the alcohol shit. I don't know how many times every listener is so sick and fucking tired of me talking about it. Because we talk about the opioid epidemic non-fucking stop, but we don't talk about all these other things that kill, more people and ruin more lives. At least, nowadays you can't say anything, but let's just say we're 20 years ago. If you were doing heroin, you're just going to fucking fall asleep, right?
Yeah.
Drink alcohol, you are liable to do just an infinite amount of dumb shit. That could hurt the people around you.
You could be the sweetest, most flamboyant, nutty, and most of the time I was the happy drunk, depending on who I was dealing with. But I'll tell you, I could be a mean son of a bitch when I was, and it sucked because guess what? That's the stuff that I didn't have to apologize to the 20 texts the next morning. Dude, you were so much fun. That was a blast. Thanks. I'd apologize to the people that it was like, what the hell was wrong with you? Why would you call me or text me? Yeah. And it does. Alcohol is killing more people worldwide. And it's not just the person intoxicated, obviously drinking and driving and everything else. We just saw was the lead singer from Smash Mouth, died of liver disease due to alcoholism. It's just like, and normally that's funny because you got to stay sober 6 months to get a liver transplant.
Right.
Well, clearly he couldn't do that.
Right. Wow.
That's how strong this shit is.
Yeah. Super strong, super dangerous. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
all right, that's my rant.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. So I have some fun questions for you.
Sweet. I love fun questions.
All right. So if you could travel back to any era in time, when would it be and why?
I kind of go between two.
Okay.
I like the 40s and 50s, and then the 80s, and it would be like Sunset Strip, LA. Because I'm a big like Motley Crue is my favorite like rock metal band of all time, and I'm a big Kiss fan. Maybe the late 70s. So I could have really like I could have seen Kiss when they were brand new.
What a time! That's what I think about when you say 70s. I think
Yeah. Maybe you have seen Hendrix and all that stuff. Like I'm primarily a rock guy. Could have seen Prince early on in his career. I'm a huge Prince fan, so it really would have been for the music.
Totally.
There was some brilliant film then too. My parents' last date before I was born was Star Wars, and that just happens to be my favorite movie. When did the Beatles stop playing together? I'm still always like, I asked my mom, like she saw all these people live.
Really?
Like she saw the Beatles. Yeah, she saw the Beatles at Dodger Stadium. And she's like, yeah, it was me, your grandma, and I think her two sisters. And like, we couldn't hear them, but we could see them because all it was girls screaming the whole time. So it'd be the music. I'd say maybe the late 70s. So I could have checked out a lot of music that I love.
That's cool.
You gotta remember, Sabbath, like when Sabbath was new. How gnarly was Black Sabbath when they came out? Zeppelin,
Totally.
Shit, come on.
I was introduced to all that kind of music by one of I think I was in ninth grade, my ninth grade biology teacher, Mr. Barrett. Now, this was a whole weird thing because at this point, my dad had started drinking. I had just gotten out of my dad had continued to drink. I just got out of foster care, moved back home. I believe this was after foster care. And my dad moved down to Florida, and I was basically living in this house in upstate New York kind of by myself a lot of the time. And so I didn't really have any food or whatever. And so Mr. Barrett, I was in this biology class that I was just failing. I hated this guy. It was my second day of class. On my second day of class, I got a write-up for being late, which you have to be late 3 times to get a write-up. So on my second day, I was late 3 times. This guy was just fucking with me, right? And I was like, wow. So I heard this guy, Mr. Barrett, was super nice. So I went up to him. I was like, hey, can I get my class changed? Like, how does that work? Because I'm going to fail with this teacher, you know? And,
right.
We couldn't do that, but what he started doing was helping me study, catch up on all this work I had, because, you know, my shit was just all fucked up because my life was fucked up. Right. So he would help me, and he would bring me a bagel every morning for lunch or for breakfast. And my teachers would like let me eat in class, even though it's not technically allowed. They saw that I was like losing a lot of weight. And then he brought me a Motley Crue CD and all this stuff. And then eventually the school got really weird about it because they were like, oh, like this teacher's like becoming really close with this female student.
Yeah.
And it was like a weird, you know, they felt like it was weird, but Mr. Barrett was amazing to me, you know, and like I said, he introduced me to Motley Crue and all these really cool bands and stuff like that. He even brought me weed a couple times when I stayed out of trouble because I was like about to get expelled, you know, and so I was like, fuck it, I'll do it. I'll stay out of trouble. I'll go to all my classes. And so he just knew how to motivate me. And yeah, so whenever I think of those bands, I think of Mr. Barrett and how he got me through that year and how helpful and awesome he was to me. So yeah, thanks for reminding me of that.
Those mentors are priceless.
Totally.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right.
Do you remember what Motley Crue album it was though?
I don't. I had it downloaded on like my super old computer, you know, like right. On whatever app or whatever you called it back then. I don't even know, like what was it called?
Well, we have like
LimeWire or whatever. And what was the other one? I can't remember. But I had just had
Napster.
Napster. Yes, Napster. Yeah. All right. My final question. If you can visit any fictional world from a book or movie, where would you go?
Oh.
It's a good one, right?
Yeah, because I'm a reader too. And, you know. Like I love, like people always trip. One of my favorite books is Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like that would be fascinating. Be like, cool. All right, I'm hanging with Van Helsing. It would have to be Star Wars.
Really?
But I kind of love the world of Star Trek though, because if you really look at what Gene Roddenberry wanted to do, I mean, putting the first Black female lead role on TV, you know, an Asian actor, you know, all these different ethnicities. Like he was really like, he saw a better world. But I don't know. Star Wars is so damn tough. Like I would like to think I'd end up being a Mandalorian or something like Boba Fett badass and just the jetpack and rockets. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you'd want to be a Jedi. No, I'd want to be that cool. Like wear a helmet and be like, this is the way. You know, I'd be the galactic sober guy. People like, here, have this whatever cool. ale. And I'd be like, no, sober is the way. So yeah, I'd have to go Star Wars. It's meant so much to me in life. I mean, I think I told you about this. My first sponsor, when he broke down to like childhood, like things I love to do to help me rediscover joy. One of them was Legos. And he's like, here, go buy yourself some of these Star Wars Legos. And I mean, I got bookshelves full of them now.
Wow.
And yeah, that would be pretty damn cool.
That would be
I would say cool. Star Wars. You know, someone that studied acting, if I could get a role as a stormtrooper that gets shot, I'd be all in.
Well, it'll be the real deal thing.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That would be even cooler. I'd have to go to some like Hobbit land or like Lorax world or just something.
I was going to ask you.
Beautiful and magical. I don't know.
So when you say like Hobbit land, you mean like Lord of the Rings-esque type stuff?
Just somewhere like magical with like elves and like be able to talk to like little chipmunks and stuff. I don't know. Wherever that is. I got to watch more movies and figure out where that is. Transport myself there.
Is that your get down? I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, Jason.
All about like that stuff.
thanks for coming to hang out with me today. I really appreciate you having you here. And so, knocking doors down, one podcast. The other podcast is Parents and Addicts in Need, right? Pain. Is that?
Yeah.
That's the name of the podcast, right?
Don't Hide the Scars.
Don't Hide the Scars. Awesome.
Which you were just on.
Which I was just on. Check it out. I thought it was an awesome conversation that we all had together. I really enjoyed it. And anything else you'd like to
we get
leave
gnarly
the
with that.
Oh yeah, it's a good one. I like it.
We probably piss some people off, make them think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Anything you'd like to share with us before we depart for the day?
Yeah. I just encourage people, don't lose hope. Like it's tough. Life is tough. Like I forget the book, but there's the number one bestseller of self-help in the 70s. And the first line in the book is life is tough. And, we all get so much stacked on us. I mean, Allie, you know that I have such admiration. I know your story, what you've been through. I just love and adore you. I think what you're doing is beyond beautiful to take all those painful things. And I talk about this difference between the hero and the villain is what we do with our pain. And, I think you're just an example of that. And I just encourage people that whatever you're going through, understand you can take it and help it with purpose. And then maybe it's not like how Allie's doing it or how I'm doing it. And goodness, if we're an example for you and you kind of want like, hey, that's going to be one of the models I follow. Hell yeah, badass. But yeah, just don't lose hope, at the end of the day. And don't look for outside solutions to your inside problems. Don't compare what you're feeling inside to what you see other people doing outside. Like, I'm with the Porsche. Yeah, they might have rented it that day or whatever it is, or on this yacht with a bunch of women, whatever the stupid things that we see on social media. We're like, that's fulfillment. Like you were born whole, you were born complete. A lot of us, we get shitty circumstances in our childhood, but don't let it define you. At the end of the day, don't. You define you. So, just put the work in, be as loving to yourself as you would the ones that you love. And, remember there is one soulmate. It's the person in the mirror. You love that person. That person. Trust me, things will fall into place for you. Not going to say it's going to be easy because it's not, right?
Totally.
But it definitely helps frame things differently. And just know people like Allie and myself, there's so many of us out there in your corner that love you and have never met you.
Totally. I say that 1,000 times again. If no one told you all that they love you today or believe in you, I do. And I'm sure Jason does too. And we're grateful that you hung out with us. Jason, thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thank you, homie.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.